The ACU women's basketball team hosts Nichols in a different home location this week. I'm Max Preston.
And I'm Grant Boone. We'll look ahead to the game against the defending tournament champions and look back at last week's games. This is the Julie Goodenough Show right now. Welcome to another week of the Julie Goodenough Show from the JMC Network studios at Abilene Christian University. I'm Grant Boone alongside ACU senior journalism major Max Preston and the head coach of the Wildcat women's basketball team, Julie Goodenough. It is Sing Song Week at ACU, one of the university's most meaningful and lasting traditions. It also, of course, means Moody Coliseum is occupied. The stage has literally been set. So, Coach, your team will head a couple of miles down Ambler Avenue to host the Nichols Colonels, and for you it'll be a bit of a homecoming. You haven't coached a game at Hardin-Simmons University since you were the head coach there for 9 seasons. That was back in 2002. So we'll talk about the Nichols game itself a little bit later on in the show, but just what are the emotions, what are you expecting in terms of the emotions on Wednesday night?
Well, I think it's awesome. I mean, it's a really cool experience for me to get to go back to Hardin-Simmons. They've already told me they're going to put me in the locker room that I used to coach in, and it's been newly renovated. It's going to be awesome. And purple is purple. You know, we're going to start blasting on social media today about the move over to Hardin-Simmons, and so we hope that we'll have some Hardin-Simmons fans there, as well as get the word out to all of our ACU fans. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be fun. Obviously, you don't want one of your home games to be taken away, but I think it's a neat opportunity for us to, just go play down the street at Hardin-Simmons. I do want to address Sing Song just for a minute, though. So let's flash back to February of 2016.
Okay.
Gata wins Sing Song, okay? And they had not won for a long time.
I know where you're going with this, by the way.
Just a few weeks later, ACU women's basketball, we win our first Division I conference championship.
And who was in Gata?
And Bailey Goodenough.
What a coincidence.
So then the next year, okay, February 2017, back-to-back sing-song champions, the women of Gata. A few weeks later, back-to-back Southland Conference champions, ACU women's basketball.
Coincidence? I think not.
Well, then fast forward to February of 2018. Gata, women of Gata give their best effort. They don't win Sing Song. Guess who doesn't win the Southland Conference Championship? ACU women's basketball.
No pressure, Gata.
So
no pressure.
there's a lot of pressure on the women of Gata.
Oh, look at this.
The women of Gata, Bailey Goodenough, Macy Goodenough, women of Gata, Shannon Rowe, my niece. Not that I'm picking favorites, but there is a strong correlation between who wins Sing Song and whether my team wins the Southland Conference Championship. So it's a really big week. Shout out to the women of Gata, Go Fight Win. They haven't asked me to help with lyrics or choreography or anything, but it's a really important week for Gata.
We might need to preview Sing Song here a little bit later on in the show.
Some of us are very stressed with Sing Song, but anyway, so Saturday it was a Go Pink game. Sarah Williamson, her family's there, including her mom, who's been battling cancer. How special was this atmosphere for Sarah?
Yeah, we had a great turnout once again for our Go Pink game, and we appreciate Hendrick Medical Center sponsoring that. And we had some neat initiatives, brought some pink into the facility. But breast cancer awareness does strike home with our program, because we walked that road with Sarah and her mother when Sarah was a freshman here. It's hard enough being a freshman, and then she was not at school very long, and found out that her mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And, they're both fighters, but Sue was able to battle and overcome the breast cancer. So she's one of those success cases. And so obviously we appreciate the opportunity to be in a situation to bring forth, the breast cancer awareness initiative. And once again, just appreciate people coming out and being a part of that.
Your program went through that with Renata Marquez a few years ago as well, with her mom, Angie, who also is thriving now. And, of course, we still love the Marquez family. This is the 15th year, by the way, of the Play for K, or the Go Pink, honoring the great Kay Yao, Basketball Hall of Fame member. All right, couple of big games coming up this week for the ACU women's basketball team. But when we come back, we'll take a look back at last week's 2 home games. This is the Julie Goodenough Show. The ACU women's basketball team was home last week for a pair of games, beginning Wednesday night against the Lamar Cardinals. Picked first in the preseason poll, leading the league at 9-0 going into the game. It was back and forth all night, went down to the wire. Lamar ultimately pulled out a 63-60 victory despite 27 points and 7 threes from junior Brianna Wright. Coach, your team won the first quarter. Lamar came back, won the second quarter. Close game at halftime. Your team outscores Lamar 18-7 in the third to open up an 8-point lead. We'll talk about the final period in just a second, but take me through the first 3 quarters and the intensity between two teams that have really been the stalwarts of this league the last few years.
Yeah, it was a great battle, and it had all the makings of being a great battle. And I thought both teams played really good on defense, and Lamar is known for turning their teams over. They lead the country in steals. They have the steals individual leader on their team, and so we knew that taking care of the basketball would be really important for us. And for the most part, we did a really nice job of valuing the ball. But both teams, I thought, were just really pesky on defense, and we just locked down. And it was hard for players to get open looks at the baskets. And both teams try to score in transition, and we were able. Both teams have some success with that. I thought it was a great ball game,
it really was.
And we knew that it would probably come down to the wire. We had a really nice crowd. We had a lot of students that came out for that game, and so it was a good ball game.
42-34, by the way, the end of 3 quarters. That's oftentimes a halftime score. It tells you what kind of defense
Absolutely.
there was.
Yeah, so I mean, being up by 8 after the third quarter is a pretty big lead against a good Lamar team. They have a sequence where they go with 3 3-pointers in a row. But, besides that sequence, you handle a pretty good Lamar squad all game. Are there some positives that you take out of that loss?
Well, and both teams went into the game being the top 2 3-point shooting teams in the league. And I think we both hit 8 or something like that. And so we were aware of that, but they did get on a little bit of a roll in the fourth quarter that kind of pulled away with the margin just a little bit. But it was a well-played game. I think both teams, the players were playing at an all-time high on the defensive end especially, which slowed the offense down for both teams. But Bree was kind of in a zone. We ran a lot of sets for her to get open off ball screens, and she was really ready to take 3-point shots. Her teammates did a nice job of really penetrating the ball deep into the zone and then kicking it back out to her. She was definitely shot ready. It came down to obviously, who's going to score the most points, but we have 4 players averaging in double digits, but only 3 scored double digits in that game. They have 4 averaging double digits, and they had 4 that scored in double digits in that game. We just needed to get 1 or 2 possessions back, and it's one of those games where you can really talk about how every possession's important. We started the game out with 3 missed layups. If you make 1 of those, then at the end, the last possession, we don't have to take a 3. We can try to get a quick 2, and so it changes your scheme at the end. But I've always told my team, like, if we lose by 1 or 2 possessions, you can put that on me. I should put you in a position where you can win the ball game, and whether it's we should have gone over this or that, maybe one more time in practice, whatever the case might be. But credit our players. They did a great job against a really good Lamar team. And it came down to really the last couple of possessions of the game. And I was proud of just our players and just the way they prepped and the way they carried through with the game plan.
Saturday night, the men's team for ACU lost in double overtime to the number 1 team in the conference. And you just look at it, everyone wants to win. No one likes to lose. But with 2 really good teams, it sometimes is just something like that. And it would have helped maybe if you had gone to the free throw line more than 5 times in the game against a pressure defense team. But that's, as you say, not something you can control, is it?
Right,
all right, so then you go to Saturday. Frustrated, of course, disappointed in losing to first place Lamar. You get Sam Houston State. If there's a more improved team in the Southland Conference, I haven't seen them, and I think I've seen everybody so far. They come into your place, they get a 72-63 win. They've won 4 times on the road in conference play under new head coach Raven Justice. What was the most disappointing thing about Saturday's 72-63 loss to Sam?
Well, it's the first time in 2019 we've been out-rebounded. And that's been something we've kind of hung our hats on. It's kept us in ball games. It's helped us finish off games. And so that was the one thing I was most disappointed with. I just felt like we didn't have the effort there to block out and rebound. We also had guards that weren't crashing the boards on offense, and that was not characteristic of our team. And so, I feel like I say this a lot. It gave us invaluable video to watch and say, this is what we were talking about during timeouts. This is what we weren't doing. We've got to respond in game situations. But that was probably the thing that I felt like hurt us the worst, is we just were not a dominant rebounding team like we have been this entire conference season.
So don't even do anything heroic. Just do what you always do.
And do what we do well.
And it changes the game, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I want to talk about Brianna. She shot, 21% from the field in the 4 games before Corpus Christi, but in the last 3 games, she shot 52% and scored 50 points last week. Is this just a shooter's trend, or did something click before those 3 games for her?
So, I mean, she's well aware that you miss every shot you don't take. She's well aware of that.
She's been coached by Julie Goodenough.
She's one of the best shooters in the conference, in my opinion. I think for a while she wasn't really getting her feet set exactly right, and she's worked really hard in individuals to make sure that she's always shot ready, that her feet are ready to receive the pass and be shot ready, cocked and loaded, ready to take her shot. And she's done a much better job of that. In fact, in our last 3 games, it's interesting when you start looking at stats, and you got to know your players' hearts and souls. And I mean, she's such a great competitor. She's a player that we rely on to score double digits every night, and the percentages are going to go with your shooters. I mean, you might have 2 or 3 games where you can't buy a bucket, and it's really frustrating, but I know all the time that they put in on their own, and I know that a player like Dominique, a player like Maddie Miller, like Bree Wright, like Josie Larson, like they may have a game they can't hit every shot, but then they're going to have a game where they do make every shot. And so I appreciate our players stepping up and taking the shots, even in games where they're not hitting shots. But Bree had a great week at home as far as scoring.
Wouldn't surprise me if she were able to pick up Southland Conference Player of the Week. And it doesn't happen often when you lose a couple of games, but she was tremendous even in those 2 losses. Even with the losses, you're tied for 4th place. You've got a team that's in 3rd place Wednesday night. We'll preview these 2 games coming up this week a little bit later on. Stay with us on the Julie Goodenough Show.
Brianna Wright has been a leader for the ACU women's team for 3 years now. Owen Simpson had the chance to sit down and talk with her about her journey to ACU.
Before you played basketball at ACU, you played at Gerald High School, and you put up some great numbers there. You actually broke a record, most points by any varsity player. You didn't only break the girls' record for that, you went ahead and broke the boys' record as well. So with that kind of resume, there's a lot of places you could go play. So why play for ACU and why become a Wildcat?
So I was actually previously committed to SFA, and with some coaching changes, it just didn't work out. And so ACU was one of my first options. I was actually getting really closer in my spiritual life to figuring that all out. And I just love the relationship, the team, and everything that Coach Goodenough kind of has here. So it was a really good fit, and I love it here.
And as I previously mentioned before, you left as the school's all-time leading scorer. That clearly has translated over to college. You're averaging 13 points per game this season. So what has personally motivated you to continue being a natural scorer like you are?
So my freshman year, I actually was more of a contributor, dishing out the ball, helping people get their points. So that actually sets up a really good foundation to be able to become a scorer in the future. So these past 2 years, I've been distributing as well, but when you distribute and they kind of step off and guard your teammates more. So the fact that my teammates put up such good numbers as well leaves me more open for shots, and they do a good job as well getting me the ball.
Tell me, what is it like being the go-to option at the line for your team, shooting 88% there this season?
I love free throws. We work on them daily in practice, obviously. We always have competitions of our own as a team. Even though Coach Goodenough sets really high bars for our free throws, we always have little spats with each other. So it's always really fun to get in the gym, get those extra shots in, and just be really confident stepping up to the line.
No ACU basketball team has ever made it to the NCAA tournament before. With that being said, what would it mean for you and your locker room and the school in general?
So we're just really excited to take it one game at a time, obviously. We're looking forward to competing for a conference championship and then making it from there. And then if we do go to the NCAA, it'll just be an awesome experience, especially previously going to the WNIT and beating OSU. So just to have that great energy and vibe back would be great.
Take a look at the Southland Conference standings here with 4 weeks to go in the conference season. There is Stephen F. Austin. They beat Lamar at home in Nacogdoches, Texas on Saturday, so they handed Lamar their first conference loss, and the Lady Jacks remain unbeaten. There is Nichols in 3rd place at 7-3, and Abilene Christian tied for 4th place with Sam Houston State. And so, as we mentioned, the ACU women's basketball game Wednesday night is going to be played at Hardin-Simmons because the sing-song stage is already taking up half of the Moody Coliseum court. Wherever you'd be playing this game, Coach, it would be tough. You get the Nichols Colonels, the defending Southland Conference tournament champions, Coach Doobie Plaisance. They're now a half game ahead of you, as we just saw. They bring in the Player of the Year in Cassidy Barrios. Besides Barrios, though, what makes Nichols so tough?
So we were just talking about them this morning. You know, they win the conference tournament unexpectedly last year, and quite a few of the players that are playing significant minutes this year were like role players last year. But they're playing with so much confidence. You know, we got to see them up close and personal at the UTEP tournament. And, you know, it's players that really didn't have a huge impact last season, but they've just assumed these big roles this year, and they just expect to win because they, you know, had such a successful ending of the season last year. They are the returning conference tournament champions, and I would just say confidence is their biggest strength right now. And they everything goes through Barrios, and she makes everyone around her better. I mean, she's another campaign season right now to be Player of the Year once again. Even though, you know, I don't know how the standings are going to end up, but they may not win the conference championship, but she still is a kind of player that just makes everyone around her better. You have to focus on her. You have to know where she is at all times. She does a little bit of everything. Seems like just about every game they play, she's setting another school record at Nichols, you know, her senior year. I mean, she's a phenomenal player, and you can't expect one player to guard her. I mean, you have to guard her with the whole team. But I would say confidence is their biggest strength right now.
So it's interesting as you play Incarnate Word for the first time Saturday and you'll play them again within 3 weeks. Does this help your staff and team remember their game plan, playing each other so closely?
I think when you play teams, you know, within about 2.5 weeks of each other, you do remember them a little bit more. It's interesting this week, though. Nichols and Incarnate Word, we haven't seen either one.
Right.
And it's mid-February.
Yeah.
You know, you're seeing these two conference teams for the first time. But I think, yeah, playing them relatively close together will help us recall our scout a little bit better.
Well, it should be a big week. You get to go home again to Hardin-Simmons. Just one last thought as you play there. That place meant a lot to you, didn't it? Still does.
Yeah, I love Hardin-Simmons. Two of my former players are the coaches over
That's
there.
true,
And
that's
Kendra
right.
Anderson-Hassel and Sierra Allen, those are the coaches, and they're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, they've won so many games this year that they were not expected to win. I think they're overachieving, and I really credit, you know, Kendra and Sierra with their great leadership there. And you know, Dr. Lanny Hall has stepped down from being the president over there, but I'll always credit him with, you know, my coaching career. You know, I had not ever had a full-time coaching job, and Dr. Lanny Hall and the AD, Dr. Merlin Morrow, gave me a chance to coach at the age of 23. I was 18.
It took you all the way to 23 to get a head coach?
Yeah,
What took so long?
my first job,
Yeah.
and you know, I had really not very much experience, and they allowed me to take the reins of that program. And so I love the people at Hardin-Simmons. You know, Jimmy Keeling is still one of my best friends.
Legend.
John Neese is like my brother,
Sure.
and so I love those folks at Hardin-Simmons and always cheer them on, and you know, want them to have a lot of success. And I'm very thankful that they're allowing us to play this game there on Wednesday.
Well, you are still beloved there as you are at ACU. One last thing. You have a tip-off in the afternoon on Saturday against Incarnate Word. Are you going to make it back for Sing Song
Absolutely,
Saturday night?
absolutely. Got my tickets ready
Okay,
to go
well,
for
one
the
more
8 o'clock
time
game.
here. Let's get the mug out. Not that she's playing favorites, but she is.
I don't know who
Go
the
Gator.
judges are, but if you're watching the Julie Goodenough show, this is subliminal.
You might be able to sit behind the bench at a game if
Yes,
if
maybe
Gator
we need
wins.
some honorary coaches,
All right.
judges.
Okay. It's another big week, isn't it, in the Southland
is.
Conference, and ACU sitting there at a tie for 4th place, hosting the defending tournament champions in Nichols. Wednesday night, Hardin-Simmons, then on the road at Incarnate Word in San Antonio. So we're looking at you, ACU alumni and fans in San Antonio, come out and support the Wildcats against the Cardinals of Incarnate Word. For Max Preston and Coach Julie Goodenough, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Julie Goodenough Show. Enjoy the games this week. We'll see you right here next week.